Okay, the Progressive Soapbox with Jamarl Thomas it's a YouTube channel. He discusses a lot of stuff from a very far left perspective. I've spoken to him on the phone. Pretty nice guy, I think. We really don't agree on much except for opposition to the Patriot Act and a couple of similar things, anti-censorship. I think he's more sincere than a lot of other left-wing people that I've encountered, including some of his fans are kind of retarded, but I don't think it really reflects on him. But today, he happens to be in a country that I would have thought he would be boycotting. Now, I don't know if he's in favor of the BDS movement against Israel, because if he is, which again I don't know, because I haven't found any official statement on his part that he boycotts Israel, supports BDS. I think he might support BDS. He's had on Abby Martin and a host of other people that are, stalwarts for that movement. But if he does support it, he's actually violated the code of the BDS movement. But here we go. Here he is from Israel, and this is a pretty strange perspective you're going to hear.
And so it becomes a practical issue. So this morning was essentially, after a horrible night, was spent with me trying to find a doctor here in Israel. And after finding a doctor in Israel, getting a prescription from that doctor, and then taking that prescription to get it filled. Now, this is where this gets interesting. This is several videos, if I'm being honest, like everything going down to this thing of the cognitive dissonance that you experience in a country like this. But in this very specific case, I get down to the pharmacy and I say, God, this is going to hurt. I said, how much? Yeah, I said, this is going to be painful because I need to get a prescription that I know in the United States hurts. It hurts. It's painful every time you have to get it. It's painful if you don't have insurance. I think I paid $10. No insurance, no anything. $10. 2 prescriptions. Prescriptions that I would normally pay probably several $100s for in the United States. $10. I asked the guy, I said, because most people speak English here, so it's not one of those things where you're, completely disassociated from the individual that you're dealing with. And he says, yeah, most Americans say that. And at that point, I go into like, God, Americans, we're being screwed. And he kind of shakes his head, yeah, you are. Because what the rest of the world knows is that if you allow health insurance companies or drug companies to make a determination on how much you're going to pay without having some edifice to get in to say, okay, we're going to negotiate for the price, you're going to get hosed. You have cancer, pay me. You have this disease that you need some kind of drug for, pay me. I don't care that it hurts, pay me. At the end of the day, it always boils down to pay me. And at the point where the person says, pay me.
So you hear, I kind of let it go because I was reading something relevant to this. But Jamarl Thomas is in Israel. I think he visited Egypt, apparently, which I'd probably like to visit, but I probably can't. Although, no, I think legally you're allowed to. My uncle actually went there. I wouldn't go there. I have friends from Egypt, a lot of friends from Egypt. And then he traveled to Israel, a country that he's several times over called basically an apartheid state, said that they're basically war criminals, colonialists, settlers. He's called them literally every name in the book that's been written about the Israelis. Now, typically I think I did argue with him one time about it, and we really got up in each other's grills. But he's talking about it from a health insurance perspective. He's talking about it from the issue of, well, we should, in the United States, get this. He believes that the United States should copy the system of a country that he calls an apartheid, colonialist, racist, fascist regime run by war criminals. So, because it was very cheap. Now, I did live there. I did serve in the army there by law. and I don't need to apologize to Jamarl Thomas for shit. And I will tell you that the healthcare system there is, there's some bright spots and then there's some dark spots. And I would say that, unfortunately, I would give up even the benefits of having the system over there in favor of the freedom and economic mobility that you have over here. Now, I actually don't have health insurance now. I did have health insurance with my last job, which they let me go. And now I work as a contractor, so I don't have health insurance. So I'm not going to speak from the perspective of somebody who's solved the problem or who has all the answers, but I will say that in Israel there's a chronic problem with things like drug shortages. And that's not the only issue. This is from the National Institutes of Health, published survey and study by the Israeli Journal of Health Policy, called Drug Shortages in Israel, Regulatory Perspectives, Challenges and Solutions. You can see the authors are Eyal Schwartzberg, Denise Einbinder, Alla Vishkausen, and Ronnie Gamzu. So you have a real diverse group of people there. You actually have 3 different ethnicities over there: the Ashkenaz, the Russian, and probably a Syrian over here. Gamzu, I think, is a Syrian name. So, there's the apartheid working for you, right, Jamarl? Just separating everybody by race. They can't even, they're so separated they write academic papers together. In any case, and I would know what those names are, the ethnic ties behind them. Anyway, DS means drug shortages. They say the causes of drug shortages, in their view, according to the OECD, included globalization of manufacturing and distribution activities. I think that's something Jamarl would agree with. He would probably blame it on capitalism. I would blame it on free trade, as well as government, government subsidies. Even though the manufacturers are globalized, you still have governments that are giving these pharmaceutical companies money in order to develop these drugs. So basically, you're doing a lot of corporate welfare, and I don't know why he would object to that. I don't know if he would. So hopefully, maybe he'll respond to that note. Leading to fewer supply sites and thus less flexibility, scale of demand, as well as pricing and reimbursement policies. Whoa there! Whoa! Reimbursement policies. Who's reimbursing these companies? There'll be insurance companies as well as governments. When a drug manufacturer or a medical device manufacturer markets their product, who ends up paying for it? Ultimately, it is often governments, okay? Especially in countries where, especially in particular, countries where the health system is run by the state. That would be any system such as Germany or Holland or Sweden or Israel or Japan. So you're basically seeing a market price fixing mechanism going on. You're seeing that the customer, the state, is basically inflating the value of whatever you're talking about, because the state, at the same time as it draws up the regulations and the specifications for what they want, all those demands and the regulatory stuff, which obviously in healthcare and pharmaceuticals is definitely necessary to a certain extent. You can't be basically pumping people full of lead, but that's what drives up the cost of the product. And then ultimately the customer, the state is the customer here, buys the product. That is the flaw in universal healthcare all over the world. Okay, so I made the hypothesis here. What you see here is some statistics from the same study that talking about drug shortages worldwide. One of the major concerns in drug shortages worldwide is disruption in the supply of sterile injectables, resulting in severe impact on public health. During the years 2013 to 15 in Israel, 27% of drug shortages were supply interruptions of injectables, and approximately 20% of these were IV injections. So, there you go. Even in a country where public health and healthcare in general is largely managed by the government, you still have a lot of drug shortages. I think I did see some of the other some other statistics here. According to the FDA data in years 2011 to 2012, sterile injectables account for about 70% of all drug shortages. Throughout 2014 to 15, Israel experienced 3 major drug shortage crises leading to disruption of drug supply. 2 of them involved local manufacturing sites. In one case, all the production of a MAH was, I think that would be a manufacturing site, was moved to a new manufacturing plant. During the preparation for this major variation, following discussions between the Ministry of Health and the MAH, it was decided to increase the inventory of critical drugs to 6 months of use, taking into account the MAH being the sole supplier for these products. Unfortunately, due to unexpected production difficulties at the new facility, these efforts were insufficient, resulting in an immediate shortage of many critically important injectables such as midazolam, lidocaine, and morphine. In another incident, one of the major pharmaceutical companies in Israel relocated the secondary packaging site of solid oral dosage from form products, creating an outgoing temporary shortage in 90 of the company's drugs, some of them with a single supplier. So those can be blamed on the company. Another crisis related to the transfer of the production of injectables to a new manufacturing facility abroad is still having an impact on their supply chain, resulting in the need to import non-registered alternatives. The MOH is working. So these are, you would say, those can be blamed on the industry. It could also be blamed. Why is the industry, if these drug companies are so profitable, why would they be leaving Israel, which has universal health care? Why would they leave? Tell me, why would they leave? Why wouldn't they stay there? Why? Because of course, these pharmaceutical companies are just as fascistic and racist and colonialist as the Israelis, right? It says the etiology of DSs in Israel is similar to FDA and EU, being multifactorial and related to one or more of the following factors. Quality problems that are not limited to the final product, but often found in the raw materials. Disruption or delay in the supply of the raw or bulk material. And the one that a lot of people will admit to is regulatory authorities' requirements for improvement of the manufacturing process have become a complex and expensive effort for pharmaceutical companies. Many companies, especially but not limited to small ones, are unable or unwilling to make capital investments to sufficiently upgrade the infrastructure required according to the updated GMP practice. Hence, manufacturers often choose to discontinue production of low-priced off-patient drugs. The phenomena is further accentuated in a small country with strict regulations like Israel. Okay, let me repeat that. The phenomena is further accentuated in a small country with strict regulations like Israel, where local manufacturers are sometimes required to implement changes in the manufacturing/validation process of drugs intended for a relatively small local market. That says the situation in Israel with limited market size and number of competitors results in many drugs being manufactured solely by one company. Okay, there you go. There's a monopoly. That's not exactly the fault of the state, but what are you going to do? There's patent laws. Then you get low prices of certain off-patient medicines may contribute to drug shortages and drive manufacturers of these medicines out of the market. Okay. Furthermore, in Israel, reference pricing policy is determined by referencing overseas countries, but not necessarily reflecting global and local market conditions. There you go. Price fixing. Price fixing is the problem in any market. And price fixing is an essential element of socialist command systems, command economic systems. Fluctuations in currency exchange rates influence prices as well. This, in turn, may lead to situations in which the revenue of drugs will not cover the cost of production, resulting in permanent drug shortages. So there you go. This is something. Well, basically, the only way that Jamarl could justify keeping a system like this in place, although there's not, like I said, there's not everything wrong with that system, and there's not everything wrong with our system. And it's not as if Canada is a complete and total disaster. I think every one of these systems has a number of flaws, and Jamarl has a perfect solution at hand. He could just leave. He could just move to Canada if he wanted. He's not going to do it. Just-in-time inventory control by manufacturers, medical product distributors, and healthcare institutions reduces the possibility to cope with drug shortages at times of unexpected demand changes or supply disruption. In cases in which an MAH is the main or sole source for a medication on the market, a manufacturing supply chain problem can often result in a drug shortage affecting the entire country. So you have the demands of the state. Basically, if the state sees this big spike in demand, or there could be actually a huge dip in demand, that could basically throw the entire production process out of whack. Okay, imagine you're used to producing 5 pallets of a certain drug, and then one day you're told, well, now we're going to need 35 pallets of it. It's not very easy. You have to hire extra shifts. You have to create space if there's not enough room in order to produce it. The deadline could be way too close. The drug market in Israel is centralized and dominated by health management organizations, HMOs, with large-scale generic medication tenders. Therefore, all approved generics and innovative drugs of the same international non-proprietary name are perceived as switchable by the HMOs, with the exception of biosimilars, where a different policy exists. Thus, the HMOs buy their drugs based almost entirely on pricing. This often leads to a situation where this is a very interesting bullet point. This often leads to a situation where an MAH that fails to win a tender discontinues manufacturing or local distribution of the drug, resulting in only one alternative with sole supplier on the market. So this is the key part. What progressives and in their various configurations would like to say is, when you put the entire healthcare system in the hands of the government, the society will be able to negotiate the price with these pharmaceutical companies if they're even allowed to exist. Okay, and that will solve the issue of high-cost medications. That is a complete lie, because if you are, now remember, a lot of these medications have generic alternatives. At the moment, in some of these countries, like in Israel, we have HMOs that basically they group together clients and customers. They will buy the generic, and therefore the company that developed the drug, the company that trademarked the drug, the company that put all the risk in to the R&D to develop the drug, they're up shit's creek, because the largest quantity of the drug being purchased is purchased at a tremendous markdown. So all that investment pretty much goes up in smoke for them. Okay, unless they can get a massive clientele to buy the trademark name of the drug. Now, this again is the need for the high price of R&D is due to regulation, as well as of course, there's oftentimes a drug will be developed and it goes through, years and years of failures and starts and stops. And in the meantime, while you're developing it, you're not making any money. You can't sell something that's not approved to go on the market. So this is where progressives don't understand the difficulties that people in the pharmaceutical industry, or people in my industry is medical devices, which is, one step away. These companies that do that are taking a tremendous risk financially in order to produce a product that may or may not get sold one day. And unfortunately, you have people who, they're well-meaning. I'm trying to be nice today. They're well-meaning. They want to, reduce the misery in the world. They want everybody to have the same rights, but they don't know what exactly goes into developing these products. And if this was the way that society was funding its healthcare, the way they wanted it to, a lot of these drugs, I'm not going to say all of them, of course in Cuba as well as in Romania and Hungary and other socialist states, there have been, back when those countries were socialist states, not just Cuba, there was R&D and there was development of new medicine and all of that, but it doesn't even compare. It just pales in comparison to the massive healthcare and R&D industry here in the United States, as well as in other countries that pharmaceutical and medical device biotech companies are investing in, and they can't appreciate it. People who believe in an equitable society and all of that jazz, they can feel good about making people more equal, but the people they're making more equal don't end up feeling good because of the medicine that ends up being produced. That's just my opinion. Of course, you're welcome to disagree with me. I know that my perspective probably doesn't jibe with either progressives or even libertarians. Okay, it's just my experience and the observations I've made. So that's about it. It's Bold Like a Leopard. Please like this video. Join the Patreon if you want, Chef Leopard. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the second channel, Razor Ray Live Wounds, as well as the BitChute channel. And comment on the video and share it. Have a good night.